So thank you so much for inviting me today. Planting the seeds of peace, empowering future generations through conflict resolution education is my little topic here. I'd like to begin with kind of just a general good morning. I really feel like this is a privilege being in this room with, virtual room anyway, with professionals such as yourselves. You're all dedicated to the transformative work of conflict resolution, as myself. Also I am as well. So together we can really celebrate this very, very special 25th anniversary of the Association for Conflict Resolution. Yay! I think we can all recognize that the teaching conflict resolution skills is not just about teaching how to resolve conflicts. It's really about empowering future generations to foster peace in their homes, their schools, their communities. And at its best, our work is transformative for us too, as practitioners and people, and as well for those with whom we work. So how many times have we heard people say they went to a mediation and came away wanting to be a mediator? And that's a really, really good thing. It really makes me feel proud as a dispute resolution practitioner, and I'm sure it does for you as well. So in preparing for today's discussion, I revisited some of the work that I did with the AAA ICDR Foundation as a grants committee member, helping to fund many small and large ADR projects and programs. I followed up with some interviews to kind of get their updates to see how they're doing now regarding their work and the current state of them running their programs. And you can see my little agenda on the right there. Basically, we're talking about engaging, creating engaging material for youth predominantly, although this transfers to adults and other participants, strategic implementation, and then building a sustainable program or initiative. So here's my little introduction, a little bit about me. For decades, I've had the privilege of shaping all kinds of programs and services in both the public and the private sectors. I served as the commercial VP, as many of you know, for the AAA, the American Arbitration Association, out of the Miami Regional Office. Previously, I had directed 2 ADR programs for Florida Judicial Circuit Courts. And relevant to today's discussion, I served on the AAA ICDR's Foundation Grants Committee. I would like to share the site here with you. That is the site, the AAA ICDR site. And you can see that they have an annual grant award. They do diversity scholarships. They do a rapid response grants, which are small things like the California fires and smaller initiatives. They do special initiatives for just things that they really feel are important to fund. And they do case studies and research as well. So the AAA Foundation has funded almost $10 million since they started way back when I started with them in 2016. And we had a much smaller, things that we were funding, but now it's like everything. They have small and large grants of all sorts. So I just wanted to share that to you. And I'd invite you to go onto the website and, see if there's anything there of interest to you. There's even just in terms of educational, a lot of interesting information, studies and information, a lot of people that you may want to at some point collaborate with as well. Okay, back. So this is kind of where I come from this background. And I was also tapped to serve on the Florida Supreme Court's task force on foreclosure mediation back in the day. Some of us have the displeasure of remembering those days. But I can definitely say that, like you, conflict resolution is really what charges up my soul in all its many forms. It's a really wonderful superpower to have right now in our current day and age, as I'm sure you all may agree or may not. But more specifically, my practice has been in organizational conflict management, I should say, divorce mediation, lots of that, ADR education, program eval, which I love that, I'm kind of a little geek, and even some indigenous forms of conflict resolution. I'm part Hawaiian and love Ho'oponopono and other forms of indigenous conflict resolution. I taught from elementary and high school, exceptional student education, to graduate courses and professional development stuff. Published lots of studies and articles along the way. And even though that all sounds like a lot, I'm really old, so I had plenty of time to fit all that stuff in. So since retiring in 2022, I shifted my focus towards a new way to teach conflict resolution, and that's through children's books, musical films, and videos featuring live animals and puppets. Yes, live animals. What was I thinking? and puppets. So my first short film, The Weedy War of the Gnomes, won Best Educational Film at the 2024 San Diego International Film Festival. And my second, Bunny Boogie, is set to premiere during Mediation Week this year. So that's been a lot of fun. I also host the Bunny Boogie and Friends channel on YouTube, where it's designated for parents, caregivers, and kids of all ages to learn that kindness and compassion are really at the heart of resolving any dispute. Because let's be honest, even with our fancy mediator tools and strategies, sometimes a guinea pig with sweet dance moves just kind of gets the message across way better, not just for kids too. So without further ado, let me introduce you to my little star, Mr. Sweet Potato, in this very basic, organic little video clip that's here with all its imperfections.
You know, the other day, Tutu and I got into a bit of a disagreement. She said I had already had dinner and didn't need any more lettuce. I was sure I needed more. Voices were raised, feelings were hurt, I nibbled on her toe, a grape was launched. It was a whole thing. Conflict happens, even in the coziest of cages. Sometimes it's over something silly like who gets the last slice of cucumber. Other times it's could someone chew through the iPad charger, not naming names. But what I've learned between bites and blunders is this. If you don't talk it out, you carry it around. Like hay poking you in the butt. You don't see it, but it's there, making everything uncomfortable. So I went back to Tutu, told her I was sorry, gave her a little chortle, and I let her pet my nose. And guess what? She shared her blueberry with me. Just like that. It was okay again. Conflict isn't the end of the story. It's just a messy middle. What matters is how we clean it up. And kindness? That's the broom. Soft, swishy, and no judgment. So if you've got a little squeaky drama in your life, try this. Pause, nibble something calming, and then go say nice things first. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. From one fluff ball to another. And remember, there's no problem a cuddle and a crunchy treat can't fix. I think it's time for a treat now.
So why a guinea pig? As brilliant as we may be with our fancy degrees and certifications, I personally believe that everyone should be a dispute resolution practitioner and peacemaker. It's wonderful that we have professionalized our practice. It's a long time coming and it's wonderful, but I want children to see peacemaking as a superpower that they intrinsically have, that they can develop and use in their home and their school daily. So if a guinea pig can do it, they can too, right? I'm very excited to share some insights today and explore some new ways that we can empower future generations with the skills to navigate conflict successfully. So let's dive into section 1. I have a poll question here, and Kelly, or is someone able to launch the poll question? Or am I able to? Maybe I can, I don't know. Has it been added here? Ah, there it is. Okay, so in what setting do you primarily work? And let's make this quick. Just off the top of your head, some of you may have several, but just pick your most private practice. Okay, that seems to be leading. Okay, just 10 more seconds. A little bit of government and courts and private practice. Interesting. Okay, well, private practice certainly has a good deal of flexibility, and government and courts is near and dear to my heart. So thank you for that. I'm just going to end this poll so it's off my screen, I guess. And so we will touch on, both of those areas as well as others. To create impactful curricula for kids, we of course have to ensure that the content aligns with the children's cognitive and emotional development. Younger children, for example, of course, benefit from simple storytelling, puppet shows, concrete examples. Older youth, on the other hand, can engage in the more abstract thinking, the complex discussions about restorative justice, peer mediation. And I always keep in mind the adult in the room, because they need to get something from the material as well. Or should I say, sometimes they need it even more so. My work always includes quiet messages and humor that hopefully will resonate with adults, and sometimes the more obvious messages through parenting tips or caregiver guides. Next is social emotional learning, SEL, frameworks. It's obviously critical Teaching skills like empathy and active listening, emotional regulation, all allow children to better understand their own feelings and the perspectives of others. Kids have big feelings, we know that. So by integrating SEL into conflict resolution education, which often, mostly we do, we create lessons that are not only effective, but also meaningful and memorable. And need I mention again, the inner child of the adult caregiver in the room. Adults often find training in SEL as somewhat off-putting because these are skills that we're supposedly supposed to learn already as a child. Well, however, given our current challenges in society, it's my personal opinion that these messages bear repeating. See a theme here? The adults can sometimes be the problem child in the room, but we can all learn and we can all evolve through the goal of caring for a healthy, happy child. I know I've learned volumes as a teacher, when I was a parent, and now as a grandparent. You're always growing and developing, and SEL skills are really predominant in our ability to resolve conflict and even just have communication, healthy communication. So we've seen studies that show today's children are facing all kinds of unprecedented stress. Unfortunately, with active shooter drills and economic uncertainty, and even the decline in adult civil discourse, kids needs ways to cope, and they have big emotions at very early ages, earlier than they used to. Here's a short music video that I want to share with you. It shows how simple music and video can encourage a positive perspective in the face of feelings of fear and loss, which are incredibly impactful. It's an excerpt from an episode on my channel about how unchecked fear can lead to misunderstanding, something we all have experience with, I'm sure.
All that we fear and all that we grieve is a star in the night telling us to believe, 'cause the love that we give and the love that we take, they add up to the life we make. When the temperature's high and the shadows grow tall, there's a way we can learn to stand strong but not so small. If we share and we care, if we listen, not fight, in darkness you can shed a light. In darkness you can shed a light. So shed your light. You know it's right.
You. All right, so as we navigate an increasingly digital world, the field of conflict resolution education has really evolved to embrace new technologies, online dispute resolution, virtual learning models, AI, and certainly the power of social media. So these tools have offered very unique opportunities to connect with participants in innovative and accessible ways, usually accessible, except when things don't work so well, but whether through virtual mediation programs, AI-driven empathy training, or interactive social campaigns that promote peace building. All of these tools can be built into any program, and often very inexpensively. I do want to give you an example. AAA ICDR Foundation funded a video competition back when I was with them on a college campus regarding bridging cultural divides. By meeting communities where they are and adapting communication methods to their preferences, and we know how college kids love their phones, we can ensure that conflict resolution remains relevant and impactful and inclusive, especially in today's ever-changing landscape. So isn't it nice to see how conflict resolution initiatives can actually transform technology into a force for good, as opposed to a time-sucking plaything leading to depression and body dysmorphic issues? We really have an opportunity, and I'm joking about this, but I'm also very serious that it's a real opportunity that we need to embrace and think more creatively about. So moving on to section 2, there we go. Conflict resolution education should be interactive, obviously, and engaging. As much as we love discussing theories and techniques, they in themselves certainly don't create lasting change, especially for kids and for young adults. They need hands-on experiences to really grasp these concepts, especially if they haven't had life experience, so they have a context. So let me just show you. On the left here, it was so kind of Professor Richard Rowe to invite me up to Georgetown Law School to bring Bunny Boogie in tow, all of my puppets, not my guinea pig, but the puppets, and sit in on his class and teach the students how to create stories that are visual, even musical, but something visual and interactive. So you can see there, they were using the puppets to create these stories. Part of this particular class they were taking, they had a requirement to write a story at the end of the course, and they were generally just writing regular stories, book stories. So this gave them some more options and things to use, color, movement, and they also had a volunteer program that they were doing outside of the class, reading to children in different areas, reading books that taught legal concepts specifically. And so things like puppets really resonate with children, so they were really thrilled to kind of incorporate these into their work and their class work. And so that was just a really wonderful experience for me and for them. So role-playing exercises allow learners to step into somebody else's shoes and gain insights into different perspectives, i.e. the puppets. My work with puppets is just that, simulations providing real-world conflict scenarios where participants have to navigate and apply problem-solving strategies in the moment. Of course, there's always, there's gamification techniques such as cooperative challenges and storytelling games, also make learning enjoyable while reinforcing, really valuable lessons in negotiation and empathy. But please consider using these different strategies and techniques in your work, if not already doing so. An example of experiential learning you can see on the right is my work in preschools doing storytelling and film and reflection time. So kids read or listen to a fun musical story that I've written and watch the corresponding video, which is always musical, about disputes and discuss alternatives and alternative resolutions. And sometimes with puppets in hand, sometimes not. I help them to understand these different perspectives. They often come up with better resolutions than the ones that I wrote. It is fascinating to see a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, not only grasping the concepts, the high-level concepts, to me at least, they're high-level concepts, not only just grasping the concepts, but, taking them and running with them and really following through, very creative resolutions and strategies in their own minds. And sometimes they need a little guidance, but it's a lot of fun, and they associate fun with learning about conflict resolution, which is great. Section 3 is cultural responsiveness and inclusion. So I'm sorry, whoever is running the polls, if you wouldn't mind putting up poll number 2, I would very much appreciate it. Thank you so much. So what is the biggest barrier to implementing conflict resolution programs in your work? So I'll give you just about 20 seconds. Gotta just pick what comes to mind. Lack of funding is, okay, there's not a lot of thinking here. Lack of funding is a biggie, okay. Well, again, AAA ICDR Foundation, but there are other funding sources, of course, but there should be more. I agree with that. Okay. Administrative institutional resistance, community mistrust. Okay, and all of these things came up in my interviews and discussions with the various programs. Great, I will just end that poll. Thank you very much for that, and I'm sorry about the funding issues that you may have. And we will talk about that actually in this little presentation. But firstly, in terms of cultural responsiveness and inclusion, our goal may be, oops, it came back. Oh, we're sharing it, okay. Okay, I'm gonna close that just so I can see my PowerPoint. Section 3, our goal may be to provide our programs to targeted participants or to more broad, diverse groups, but either way, conflict resolution education should reflect and honor diverse backgrounds of the students that it serves. So every child brings a unique lived experience, as we know, shaped by their family, community, cultural identity, etc. And that calls for us to be humble, To make conflict resolution education truly effective, we can approach it with cultural responsiveness and inclusion, acknowledging our biases and especially our egos. When I studied mediators for my dissertation, I often heard them say they wanted parties and attorneys to leave their egos at the door. Ego doesn't belong in mediation. Well, ego isn't just a party self-centeredness trait. It's also that driven part of us as practitioners that wants our project or our program to succeed, our mediation to settle, instead of relaxing into the work, allowing it to unfold, and listening, of course. And that is ego. And ego is not necessarily a bad thing, but we just need to be very, very aware of it as practitioners. And I think the more we practice, the more we become aware of our ego state and how to kind of shift away from it. We need to continually ask ourselves, what does success look like? And is it truly successful for the people we serve, or is it for our program? In essence, we all need to work on ourselves and become our best selves so that our work reflects the loving kindness that people really need. I created one episode, and this certainly goes for me as well. I'm always like trying to check myself when I'm writing stuff. But I created one episode that spoke to groupthink in terms of the other and the fear of an imaginary quote-unquote monster in the woods. After superheroes Strawberry Pig, that's my guinea pig, and Super Bunny Joyce, my two superheroes, ventured into the woods and brought the monster back to the frightened towns critters, the angry mob learned that they might have been imagining danger because they were seeing things through a lens. When the lens is identified, they find the monster is just a little critter with a penchant for pie. So these are some really complex topics, but little kids can grasp it, I assure you. And so here we go. Let me.
Have you ever had a moment when you thought something made you mad or scared, but oops, it turned out to be not so bad at all?
Because underneath we're all the same.
That monster, that's what it was.
Oh yeah, I think it was a monster.
Lurking in the forest, no one knows. Calm yourselves, my bears. The peace that we love goes away when we fight. So fly big into the night. But the darkest force where legends grow, he's rumbling round in a pinkish glow.
Yikes! Who are you folks?
Listen up, folks. I know you're upset, but charging into the night with angry hearts won't fix a thing. Let's all just take a deep breath, get some rest, and we'll meet by the old oak tree in the morning, and maybe we can avoid having this big kerfuffle.
We learned something important. Instead of a big fight, sometimes all we need is a moment to think things through.
Let's see. So that was Pigzilla. This video is one example that kind of shows how stories, including diversity and inclusion themes, can be understood by very, very young children through digital storytelling. And very advanced concepts can also be made simple across diverse participants. Groupthink, confirmation bias, experiential lenses, all these things were incorporated in this particular video. This is just obviously the trailer. Of course, representation in media and materials is crucial, and students need to see themselves reflected in the learning content to feel connected and engaged. Additionally, and this kind of goes back to my grants days, the Grants Foundation, accessibility has to be a priority. It's a main criteria for foundations, for funding. Programs should be designed to support learners with different abilities, language needs, socioeconomic backgrounds, and ensuring that conflict resolution education is a tool for empowerment for everyone. Again, technology often makes this less expensive to accomplish, and shared technology as well, but we'll get to that later in the sections. Okay, section 4, we have a third poll question. Poll question wizard, please. Please, oh, thank you so much. Sorry. Which methods do you currently use most often? So go ahead and click on which methods you use most often. And this is a single choice, so I guess it, mediation, negotiation, mediation, kind of where I thought it would be. Not so much restorative justice, restorative practices. Conflict coaching, interesting. Well, that's kind of where one would expect, because mediation has always been most accepted and most used, so that makes sense. Okay, now there's some weird thing here. Okay, so I'm going to end that poll. Thank you so much for weighing in. And we're going to talk specifically about mediation at some point here. Let's see. So one of the most effective, one of the most effective ways to embed conflict resolution skills into young people's lives is through, as you say, mediation and peer mediation programs. In these models, students themselves can take an active role in helping their peers to resolve the disputes. This not only reduces conflicts, but also nurtures leadership, accountability, and obviously problem-solving skills. We've seen the data that show schools that adopt peer mediation programs often see reductions in disciplinary incidents, an increase in positive social interactions, and a stronger sense of community among the students. One of the programs I researched included an interview with Catherine Sire of Western Justice Center, and they work with 32 schools out in the LA County School District, providing a variety of different dispute resolution programs. But I do want to share with you a quick clip of them talking about mediation. Because they're doing excellent work. I was very impressed. Let's see. Very impressed with all the things that they're doing. Not just peer mediation, but they have a lot of free tools, and you may want to check out their website. I'm sorry I didn't have that to show you. But the Western Justice Center, if you do need curriculum and things, they have it all posted free on their website. Very kind of them to share all that information. So I also had a wonderful experience implementing a peer mediation program when I was a high school teacher here in Florida. Not only did we find a decrease in student incident reports, but I found that the classes that I taught became a lot more manageable with a lot fewer disputes between students. A particularly positive aspect was that students were telling incoming freshmen about the program in a positive way and encouraging them to get involved. So my understanding is that program, which is probably 15 years old, still continues today based on a train-the-trainer model, which is obviously wonderful. Both for students and for faculty, they had train-the-trainer models. All right, so that is my peer mediation example. I'd like to share my trailer for my second short film, Bunny Boogie, which I'm going to premiere on the YouTube channel, as I said, during Mediation Week this year. It educates children on commercial mediation, which might otherwise appear to be a rather dry subject for a 5-year-old, right? But interestingly, so far, the kids that I've tested it on, and grandchildren included, they have enjoyed it very much. So I'm thinking that this may go well. But this is just the trailer for Bunny Boogie. Crows and cows and bears, and Helen can't sleep, so she's not laying eggs. Mediate, it's not too late. Communicate, you'll see it's really mediate. Communicate. Business is better when caring and kind. My weapon, my teeth. Yeah, laugh all you want, but they're pointy. Helen's so angry, her beak's in a twist. Mr. Cluck Cluck would clock him if he had a fist. Try to be calm, proper, rational birds, but the bunny's noisy parties are clearly absurd. Run, little rabbit, run. So you can see that I do this, I shoot these in my yard by myself with my puppets and my guinea pig. I also got another guinea pig just to add to that. But these are very basic organic. And the reason why I shoot outdoors is because I want kids to go outdoors. And I say that in a variety of different ways, encouraging them to take their stuffies outside and go shoot things outside and make their own little films. But that's all for another day. So I think we have one last poll question. Is that right, poll master? Supporting resources, yes. So what kind of support or resources would most improve your ability to serve schools and communities or wherever it is you practice? And I know that money or funding and such was already identified, but let's see what else we have. Curriculum and toolkits. Again, you can find a lot of free stuff out there with technology. Oh, no, that's gone down now. Stronger partnerships with, partnerships. Yes, we are going to speak about partnerships ad nauseum. Evaluation tools, okay. More training, okay. All right, sounds like partnerships with schools and organizations is the winner. Very good. I'm not going to share results, but I'll just let you know that. So we will talk about that, but let's see. First, for comparison, some of the responses from the Western Justice Center and some other programs. Number one was buy-in from adults, so I don't know if anyone is seeing that. The adults being a little hesitant. Time, space, and funding. We had that in the previous poll question as an issue. Younger teachers being resistant. I guess they're more, they're focused on their jobs and any additional time taken away from their duties as teachers is a strain for them. So that makes sense. And that just goes to resources, I guess, and needing more volunteers. So that was another one that came up with people that I spoke with from different programs. But we will try and hit on some of these and we can talk about them at the end. But conflict resolution education can have a lasting impact by integrating it into educational institutions, as we'd like to do, and being supported through policy initiatives, which is hard to do. Most nonprofits say that stakeholder engagement is critical. Teachers, administrators, community leaders, and policymakers must collaborate to create curricula that can be widely adopted and sustained. It's something we considered in considering which grants to fund when, as the foundation, or any foundation really considers this. Who are the stakeholders? Are they committed? How long is the commitment? That said, given the conditions in some states and counties, there may not be the will or the ability or the funds to do this. That is where nonprofits can especially benefit, and I said we were going to talk about this, is partnerships. Partnerships with other nonprofits to provide services and combine resources to promote their work. And you're saying, oh, it's difficult to partnership. I want to hear from you maybe at the end and what those challenges are. But it's definitely the successful programs that I spoke with said to me that their greatest strength and their greatest asset was the partnerships. Number one, almost across the board, that it was the partnerships that they made. So perhaps better focus and better opportunities for partnership is needed, which ACR is the place for that. We need to break down the silos in our field, and that will help to forge partnerships. And as I say, organizations like ACR is one of the most likely places for us to do that. Another thought, as I attend many children's film festivals in my work, I have been struck that these folks generally have the same identical goals as ADR practitioners. They want to educate children on kindness, peacemaking, communication. So why not connect with filmmakers, content creators, authors, writers, artists of all kinds, etc., who may be able to contribute to your program, giving their own work greater relevance and authenticity. So that is something else out there, just throwing that out there. Advocating for conflict resolution education at a policy level can obviously lead to institutional changes, good ones. And as a reminder, evidence-based practices demonstrate the benefits of SEL and restorative justice, making a strong case for integrating these approaches into school frameworks. So restorative justice was a little low on our poll earlier, that it was not something used as much. You might want to reconsider that. The data is so good on it. Having the data from independent evaluations of a program is a real advantage in seeking funding, as we know. However, if there are no available funds for independent evaluation, having a strong self-evaluation process in place is crucial. When I was working with the grants committee, I actually probably took the lead on the evaluation process. So I got to see, I had our evaluation process as a grants committee, but also got to see the evaluation processes of all these different programs that we were considering funding, and saw the strengths and the weaknesses. And, it's a learning process, and it's a growing sort of thing. You have to be able to scale the evaluation process along with your program. Starting out small, there are a lot of resources out there, but we can talk about that at the end. By leveraging partnerships, and that is another way to find more assistance in evaluation. Local or especially national because those are the ones that really count to funders. Having scalable program models and data-driven assessment, you can show program effectiveness and ensure continued funding and support for conflict resolution education. That is not to say that the qualitative assessment is not important. That was actually a bugaboo for me. When I was working with the foundation, I worked really, really hard to develop an appropriate methodology for qualitative assessment of grantees and of programs. So I would encourage you to also do that. Let's see, where are we here? Section 6. Building sustainable peace initiatives. Let's see. So beyond the classroom, conflict resolution education can be amplified so effectively through technology and inexpensively oftentimes. Online learning platforms, virtual simulations, and AI-driven resources allow children to access conflict resolution training in new and innovative ways. And when I say inexpensive, that's not building your own. It's maybe an off-the-shelf piece of technology that you can maybe tailor for your program. It certainly extends the reach of a program, and we have seen that many times in the foundation where communities previously were underserved and then were able to connect once the technology was in place within these programs and projects. Social media and digital storytelling further enhance peace-building efforts. Campaigns that highlight real stories of conflict resolution and community reconciliation can inspire and educate broader audiences. Videos and stories that show real people benefiting from a program, documenting the human experience, really, really resonate. I can't say that enough. And are appealing not just to funders, but to the general public who may end up be your donors. So please do, concentrate on your I don't want to say marketing pieces, but documenting the work that you do in a way that shows the human aspect of it. The data is important, and that's wonderful to include in a video or some sort of presentation, but even just photos. Sometimes we were moved just by photos from a particular program, the stories behind them. Think of how you can better tell your stories in a more human way. As I mentioned previously, cross-sector collaboration is important to grow, but also it ensures sustainability. When educators, civic organizations, and peace-building professionals can work together, they create holistic initiatives that can foster long-term conflict resolution skills in communities. Sustainability. Solid collaborative relationships are what funders and stakeholders look for, but don't limit yourself by focusing only on organizations identical to your own. Lastly, I really would be remiss not to highlight restorative justice again. These practices, such as community healing circles, provide really valuable avenues for meaningful dialogue and reconciliation. As I said, I put one in my film. I actually have two in my films. But they empower individuals to find resolutions through understanding rather than punishment, reinforcing empathy and emotional intelligence. In fact, one of my episodes has a restorative justice circle that I think is probably the favorite scene from the kids that have seen it. They just find it really, and I tried to make it visually stimulating and engaging and all that with all the animals there, but it's the same way in real life. When you do a restorative justice circle, they aren't fuzzy animals, they're people, and they're just as beautiful and wonderful and engaging, more so actually. But my point, I guess, is that there's a real beauty in that. So that's something that translates well in documentaries and things, and it's a wonderful practice. So I've also seen various groups using discourse models, not restorative justice per se, but discourse group models. And those are accomplished very successfully using online tools, large scale, believe it or not. I remember the foundation funded town halls in Arizona with some excellent outcomes. The challenge with these programs, these sort of town halls, or even restorative justice sometimes, is in the evaluation piece. Beyond the exit surveys, it's more difficult to assess the changes that are implemented by the participants after they leave the session. Be that as it may, there's still qualitative assessment you can do. I have several circle processes highlighted again in my series. It resonates. It's something that we should do more of. And it resonates with adults too, I should say. Conflict resolution education is not just about teaching how to solve disagreements. It's about shaping a future where young people can grow into compassionate leaders and active participants in building peaceful communities. By making conflict resolution engaging, inclusive, and integrated into institutional frameworks, we empower youth to navigate challenges with confidence and empathy for life. What could be better? Embrace technology with ADR. I know it's foreign to some of us. I'm 64. So it's something that we have to learn and get better at, or I do. Definitely I do. It will force you and your work to be transparent and authentic, as audiences can be the most insightful critics. And it can also create a more cost-effective program. And many of you mentioned the cost is a problem, funding and cost. So let's continue our commitment to equipping students and communities with these vital skills, whether through experiential learning, policy advocacy, or digital storytelling. We have the opportunity, working together as a united field with ACR's help, to foster a culture of understanding, dialogue, and peace. And we can do this. So remember, plants don't just need one nutrient to grow. They need many. They need sun, they need water, they need bunches of micronutrients in the soil. But with collaboration between your colleagues, and especially across fields of practice, you are planting a peacemaking seed in some very, very fertile ground. People need you. So let's see what grows. I want to thank you for doing the important work that you do. Here's my contact information and my YouTube channel. The QR code's there if you want to give it a little scan. Please visit my channel, take a look around, please subscribe, and maybe we can all work together sometime in the future.